Somebody asks you what you want for your birthday, and before they even finish the sentence, that one word is already out of your mouth. Nothing. You say it so fast. It's almost a reflex, like a physical flinch. And here's the thing, the part most people don't get. You aren't being humble. You aren't playing hard to get. And you definitely aren't trying to be some kind of selfless martyr. You just, honestly, don't see the ROI in wanting things anymore. It feels like too much work for a payout that never quite arrives. There's a quiet pride in that nothing isn't there, that I figured it out mantra. We've been carrying since we were latchkey kids. We don't need anyone to fix it because we've always handled it ourselves. But here's what I've realized, that nothing isn't just a quirk, it's a feature, a high-level defensive strategy that helped you survive the empty houses and broken promises of the 1980s. It worked back then. It worked brilliantly. But now, that same armor is the reason. You feel like a ghost at your own dinner table. We're going to dig into why your independence became a cage, and how that 1982 kitchen table is still running your life in 2026. It's 1982. You're turning 10 or 8. Honestly, the specific year doesn't matter as much as the kitchen table. There's a Betty Crocker yellow cake sitting right in the middle, topped with that chocolate frosting from a can. You can still smell it, can't you? That artificial, sugary scent that meant a celebration. Your mom probably grabbed it on her way home from work, still wearing her office clothes and carrying the weight of the day. Beside the cake, there's a plastic pitcher of red Kool-Aid. It was always red. And those Dixie cups with the little flat wooden spoons, you know the ones. They tasted more like the box they came in than the actual ice cream. You've got 5 kids from the neighborhood, sitting on mismatched chairs. Maybe some crepe paper from the drugstore is taped to the wall, and a couple of balloons are tied to the back of your chair with a piece of rough string. But here's the thing, you didn't feel like you were missing out. You didn't feel neglected or poor. To you, that was just how life worked. That was the standard. And honestly, you were proud of it. You found your own fun with a transistor radio or a game of tag in the yard until the streetlights came on. You didn't need your parents to be directors or high-energy party planners. You took pride in figuring it out. In fact, the part you remember most is the end. When the other kids went home and the house got quiet, you'd stand in that kitchen alone and cut your own second piece of cake. No one telling you how big it should be, just you, the silence of the house, and the crumbs. You handled it. You were a pro at being okay by yourself. Psychologists have a fancy name for what was happening at that table. They call it disappointment inoculation. Think of it like a flu shot, but for your feelings. Every time you wanted that big Kenner playset and got a pair of Toughskins jeans instead, you were getting a tiny dose of reality. You were being made immune to the sting of no. But we took it a step further, didn't we? Generation X didn't just learn to lower our expectations. We learned how to hide them entirely. We stopped letting people see what we actually wanted. Why? Because we developed this deep-seated trust issue. You'd ask yourself, if I actually say what I want out loud, is it even going to happen? And if the answer was maybe, or I'm not sure, your brain just shut the whole operation down. Nothing. It was the safest bet. If you don't want anything, you can't be disappointed when you don't get it. We all knew the secret codes, too. Remember, it was a polite way of saying, not a chance. Kid, it taught you that wanting something out loud just led to one place. Quiet. Wait. For something that wasn't coming. So you stopped asking. You stayed quiet. And for a long time, Silence felt like the safest place to be. Why risk the letdown when you could just stay invulnerable? Why put your heart out there just to have it handed back to you with a "not right now"? Let's go back to 1977. Star Wars was the biggest thing in the universe, and every kid in America wanted those action figures for Christmas. But the toy company, Kenner, couldn't keep up. They couldn't make the plastic fast enough. So what did they do? They sold an empty box. Seriously. They called it the early bird certificate package. Parents actually bought a cardboard box with a certificate inside that said, "I owe you." Think about that for a second. Your big birthday moment, the thing you'd been dreaming of, was replaced by a promise to be fulfilled later. That later became the unofficial theme song of our childhoods. Your birthday was often just a placeholder for a reality that was always a few months or a few years away. It reinforced this idea that everything you wanted could be delayed, or worse, replaced by something more practical. I know you wanted the bike, but here's a nice coat for school. Sound familiar? It reinforced the belief that your desires were negotiable, while practicality was absolute. The wild thing is, one of those original empty boxes is sitting in the Smithsonian Museum right now. Your childhood disappointment has literally been museumified. It's a historical artifact. But for you, it wasn't history. It was the blueprint for how you view every birthday gift and every promise today. Don't get too excited. It might just be another empty box. Let's talk about why the house was so quiet back then. It wasn't just a coincidence. Between 1970 and 1985, the number of families where both parents worked jumped from 40% to 60%. At the same time, the divorce rate doubled, hitting its absolute peak right when we were in the middle of our childhoods. Around 1979 to 1981, you weren't just a kid, you were a latchkey kid. You came home to an empty house, and that house key around your neck. It wasn't just a piece of metal, it was your badge of membership in the warrior class. You didn't see yourself as a victim or someone who was missing anything. You saw yourself as the one who handled things, so the adults wouldn't have to. In those years, the adults were often just trying to keep their own heads above water. They were dealing with stagflation, new careers, or the fallout of a marriage ending. And because they were so busy just surviving, they often forgot to ask the small questions. They didn't ask what you wanted for your birthday, so you eventually stopped telling them. It wasn't out of spite. It was a form of emotional economy. You learned to be good not because you were a saint, but because you realized that having no needs was the most helpful thing you could provide for your family. You became an expert at saving your emotional currency for things that actually mattered, like staying out of the way. You stopped telling, and eventually, you stopped knowing how to ask. Fast forward to today. You're the one planning the big milestones now. You'll spend 3 hours curating the perfect 80s synth pop playlist for a friend's 50th. You'll hire the bouncy castle, coordinate 25 different guests, and make sure the cake is exactly what your kid dreamed of, and you actually enjoy it. Why? Because a party for someone else is a project. It's a logistics puzzle you can control. It's a way to provide for others what you learn to do without. But the second the spotlight turns back on you, everything changes. A surprise party doesn't feel like a tribute, it feels like an invasion. It feels performative. And, honestly, a bit fake. We grew up in a world before social media, before the celebrate me culture, and before constant digital validation, to a Generation Xer being the center of attention. feels like wearing an itchy wool sweater. That's 3 sizes too small. It's uncomfortable, and you just want to take it off. There's also this deep-seated need for control. If someone else throws the party, they own the moment. And if there's one thing we learned in those empty houses, it's that we don't like to owe the moment to anyone else. I don't want anything is just another way of saying I don't want to lose control of my own space. There's a reason why the birthday blues hit our generation harder than most. A YouGov survey from 2024 found that 36% of adults actually dislike celebrating their birthdays. And that number is highest among people over 45. It's not just about the number of candles. For us, caring starts to feel like counting. And counting means looking at the ticking clock. Every birthday isn't just a celebration of how far we've come. It's a glaring reminder of how much road is left. This is where the emotional ROI comes in. At this stage in life, we are incredibly protective of our energy. We'll spend it on our kids because there's a clear result. We'll spend it on work or the house because it yields a return. But spending emotional energy on our own birthday, to most of us, it feels like a bad investment. Nah, it's not worth it. We say, we use that same self-reliance that kept us safe in 1982 as a shield to protect us from the fear of aging. In 2026, if we treat the day like it's just another Tuesday, then the ticking clock doesn't sound quite so loud. We aren't being indifferent, we're just being efficient with our survival. Let's sit with that for a second. Everything we've talked about, the nothing response, the emotional economy, the avoidance of the spotlight, it's not because you're broken. It's not a malfunction in your personality. It's not even a sign that you're difficult to celebrate. The truth is, much more strategic than that. This whole setup, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Honestly, it's one of the most effective survival strategies you ever developed. Think back to that kid. In 1982, that kid was smart. That kid looked at the empty chairs, the maybe for Christmas excuses, and the cardboard boxes containing nothing but promises. And they made a genius-level calculation. They realized that if they stopped wanting, the world couldn't hurt them anymore. If you don't care about the cake, it doesn't matter if it's dry. If you don't care about the gift, it doesn't matter if it never arrives. That nothing was your shield. It was a strategy designed to protect a vulnerable 8-year-old heart from a world that was often too busy, too tired, or too broke to show up. And for 40 years, that strategy worked. It kept you safe. It made you the strong one. It allowed you to handle everything yourself without ever having to rely on the shaky promises of others. But here's where we have to be honest with ourselves. And this is the part that stings a bit. The problem isn't that the strategy is wrong. The problem is that it's overprotecting you now. You're running a defensive software from the Reagan era on a 2026 heart. Back then, you needed that armor because you were small and had no control. But you aren't that kid anymore. You have the control now. You have people in your life who actually want to show up, who actually want to see you, and who want to celebrate the fact that you're here. Yet, every time they try, your old armor slams shut. You say nothing. Before you even think, you push them away because the armor doesn't know the difference between a genuine celebration and a broken promise. It just sees threat. It sees a potential for disappointment, and it shuts the gates to keep you safe. It's preventing you from receiving the very thing you spent your whole childhood wishing you had: someone who notices. You aren't a victim of your past, but you might be a prisoner of your own protection. It's like you're still wearing a heavy suit of steel plates in the middle of a warm living room. It's not a bug. No, but maybe, just maybe, it's a piece of armor that's become too heavy to wear forever. You don't need to be that warrior at your own birthday table anymore. You can just be the person who wants something. And that's a terrifyingly brave thing to be. I'm not going to sit here and give you some glossy 5-step checklist on how to fix your birthday. I'm not going to tell you to go out and treat yourself or use whatever wellness buzzword is trending this week. Honestly, if I use the phrase self-care, I can already see you rolling your eyes from here. And frankly, I'd be rolling mine too. That whole celebrate me culture, it feels forced. It feels performative. And for us, if it isn't real, it isn't worth the energy. If your idea of a perfect birthday is sitting in a quiet room with the lights dimmed, a dog at your feet, and a glass of something that's been aged in a barrel for 12 years, then do that. There's a profound power in that kind of silence. It's not sadness. It's not isolation. It's peace. And after 40 or 50 years of being the warrior who handled everything, you've damn well earned some peace. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? I have one request, just one. The next time you're standing in your kitchen, or at your desk, or out at dinner, and someone looks you in the eye and asks that dreaded question, what do you want? I want you to do something difficult. I want you to wait. Don't let that nothing slip out immediately. Don't let the reflex win without a fight. Just hold it in your mouth. For 1 second, feel the weight of it. Feel your throat tighten and your armor try to slam shut because it thinks it's protecting you from a disappointment that happened in 1982. In that one tiny second of silence, I want you to ask yourself a very specific, very uncomfortable question. If I truly, honestly don't want anything, then who was it that taught me I wasn't worth wanting for? Think about that. Really think about it. Was it a tired mom who couldn't look up from the bills? Was it a dad who was already halfway out the door? Was it an economy that told you your family was one paycheck away from a maybe next year promise? Whoever it was, whatever the reason they were wrong, they taught you that being good meant being invisible. They taught you that having no needs was your greatest contribution to the world, but being invisible isn't a virtue, and your desire to be noticed, not in a loud, flashing lights kind of way, but in a I see you kind of way, isn't a weakness. It's just being human. We've spent our whole lives being the generation that figured it out. We're proud of that. We should be. But you don't have to be a warrior 24 hours a day. You don't have to wear the steel plates to your own dinner table. It's okay to want something. It's okay to let someone else hold the spotlight for you, even if it's just for the length of a happy birthday song. That feels 30 seconds too long. So, do me a favor. If you're one of those people who has spent decades saying nothing because it was the only way to keep your heart safe from the sting of an empty box, I want you to do something. I want you to go down to the comments right now and just type one word, nothing. No explanation needed, just the word. I want to see how many of us are standing here in this same heavy, outdated armor, looking at each other across the internet. It's a way of saying I'm here, and I get it. And if you're feeling particularly brave, the kind of brave that doesn't involve a house key or a transistor radio, tell me about one thing, just one. Tell me about that one toy, that one bike, or that one specific Sears catalog item you used to circle with a red pen. When you were 10 years old, knowing deep down it probably wouldn't show up. Let's bring those old ghosts out into the light for a minute. Let's acknowledge the things we wanted. Before we learned how to stop wanting, don't go anywhere just yet. Though, this birthday reflex is just the tip of the iceberg. There's another piece of the Generation X puzzle, another feature of our upbringing that's probably running in the background of your career and your marriage right now, without you even realizing it. I'll see you in the next video. We've still got a lot of digging to do.